Hey, so today I want to give you guys an intro to the concept of photosynthesis. And when you hear the word photosynthesis, it's best for you to kind of break that word down into two parts. The first part being photo, and the second part being synthesis. And when you hear the word photo, you should think of sun, you should think of light. And the idea of synthesis is to make something. And in this case, we're really looking at how plants and autotrophs, some algae and some bacteria, can make their own food using the sun. So you guys, photosynthesis is a big deal. Nearly all living things obtain their energy either directly or indirectly from the energy of sunlight, which is captured during photosynthesis. If there wasn't photosynthesis, there wouldn't be plants, you wouldn't have food. We rely on the process of photosynthesis in order for us to survive. The definition I want you to have for photosynthesis then is it's the process by which a cell captures energy in the form of sunlight and uses it to make food. There are certain organisms which can make their own food using energy from the sun, and then there are organisms that can't make their own food using energy from the sun. The scientific word would be autotroph. I think automatic, it can do it. An autotroph is an organism which can make its own food by using energy from the sun, and a heterotroph is an organism which cannot make its own food using energy from the sun. So, of course, the examples I've shown you here, pictures would be a plant. There's certain bacteria and algae that can produce their own food using energy from the sun. Heterotrophs would be animals that you can think of. I gave you a picture of a panda there because he's cute. We can't, and humans are a perfect example. We cannot make food on our own by just going outside and soaking up the rays. We have to actually go out and find it and consume it. All right, so now that you have a basic idea of what photosynthesis is, it's an autotroph using sun to make its own food. I want to talk about the actual science behind what's going on here. So during photosynthesis, autotrophs use the sun's energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and sugar. We're going to break the process of photosynthesis down into two stages. And again, we're being a little bit simplistic with this presentation and with these notes. Photosynthesis is very complex. We start to talk about Kelvin cycles and those type of things. But for now, we're just going to really talk about the basics to help get you ready for the lab that you're about to do. So stage one would be the actual capturing of the sun's energy. And this process is going to occur mostly in the leaves. And so the chloroplasts that are in the plant cells, chloroplasts are an organelle within the plant cell. We learned about those when we talked about plant cells in the previous unit. Those chloroplasts are going to capture the light from the sun using a photosynthetic pigment that's called chlorophyll. And this is going to give the energy to power the next stage of photosynthesis that we're going to talk about. The next part of photosynthesis that we're going to talk about is how the how the plant then uses the energy from the sun to make the food. So the energy is in the chlorophyll, and then there's the other components, as we saw in that equation a few slides back. Cells need water, which is H2O, and carbon dioxide, which is CO2, for this stage. Carbon dioxide is going to enter the leaves through the stomata, and the water is going to enter the plant leaves through the roots. So the stomata, if you can see this background picture here, you'll see some blobs that look consistent. And then there's some that some of my students say kind of look like coffee beans, and those are actually the stomata. So those are where the carbon dioxide is going to enter the leaf of the plant through the stomata, and it is also where the oxygen leaves, the byproduct oxygen that the plant no longer needs after photosynthesis happens. And then we've got, so water and carbon dioxide enter through the stomata and through the roots. And then there's this chemical reaction that happens inside the chloroplasts of the plant cell, specifically in the thylakoid discs of the chloroplast. And the chemical reaction converts the water and the carbon dioxide that was brought in to become sugar and oxygen for the plant. The plant will retain the sugar, because that's what it uses for its food source. But then the oxygen, the plant doesn't need it. It's a byproduct. It lets it go. So the oxygen is what's going to leave the plant through the stomata. So that's your quick intro there to the concept of photosynthesis. You're going to be doing some labs and some readings that are going to help you explore the topic a little bit more in depth. But just a quick recap is how the plant cell, I've got a picture of a plant cell on there for you. The green organelles in there are your chloroplasts, and you can specifically see the thylakoid discs in this picture. So the plant, within the plant cell, it takes the carbon dioxide, which has entered the leaf through the stomata, and it takes water, which is entered through the root system. And the carbon dioxide and water, with the power of the energy from the sunlight, move those molecules around to create a glucose, which is the sugar, and in this equation is listed as organic matter, and an oxygen. And the plant will retain the sugar, and it will release the oxygen through the stomata.